The movie opens in Peacock, a small town where a woman named Emma is frantically picking up the laundry outside her house, and a train is passing just outside the fence. Emma rushes inside, and waits anxiously as the newsboy passes her street. Once the coast is clear, she quickly grabs the newspaper from her porch. At the same time, the radio is talking about the upcoming election, where two fierce rivals are going head-to-head for the Senate race. After preparing a wonderful breakfast, she goes near the window to observe the neighboring kids. All this while, she makes sure she is hidden, and also keeps staring at the clock. When it's 8:15 a.m., she slowly proceeds to a room, and sits in front of the mirror. Then, she shockingly removes her makeup, wig, and clothes, revealing that it's actually a man named John Skelpa. Turns out he is suffering from dissociative personality disorder, a condition where a person has more than one personality. In most cases, the patient suffers from severe memory loss, making it difficult for them to recall what happened in the past. After he eats the breakfast prepared by his other self and as he's about to leave for work, he opens a step on the porch, revealing a secret box. There are several baseball cards inside. John grabs a bank passbook and one of the card covers, before putting the box back inside. He then gets on his bicycle and pedals away to his workplace, which turns out to be a large bank. As he makes his way to his office, he doesn't even bother chatting with his colleagues. Shortly after, his boss, Mr. French, hands him a stack of paperwork. He also puts a flower on John's pocket, as today is the Mayor, Ray Krill's election celebration. John is undeterred by all this, but when he is handed his paycheck, his face lights up. After the boss leaves, John brings out the baseball card cover, which houses a key inside. It turns out to be the key to his safe deposit box. John cashes his paycheck, and puts some of the money in his locker, before recording all his savings in his passbook. After work, he heads to a nearby lake where he has a relaxing time. He opens the lunchbox packed by Emma, where he finds a note. She asks him to stop by at the market and hurry home. When it gets dark, John enters a small department store for groceries, and also makes sure to buy his usual stuff, baseball cards and chocolates. On his way out, he runs into a friendly neighbor, Mrs. Sternberg. She tries to invite him for dinner, but John can barely make eye contact due to nervousness, so he excuses himself and leaves. Once back home, the first thing he does is put the bank passbook and baseball card cover back in the secret box. He then heats the dinner, which was already made by Emma in the morning, and goes to sleep. The next morning, the personality of Emma has already taken over him. She is currently grabbing her laundry in the garden. But just then, a passing train malfunctions, sending a carriage hurling towards her property. Fortunately, she is not hurt, but when she wakes up, she is shocked to find several people surrounding her. They are confused about who she is, and inquire if she is John's wife, but she ignores them and frantically rushes back inside the house. She also puts a note on the breakfast plate. After the clock hits 8:15, John gets dressed and heads outside. He is taken aback to see the commotion, which reveals that he doesn't remember anything. A neighbor tries to interact with him, but John becomes so nervous that he goes back inside and locks the door. John also finds a note from his alter ego. She warns him not to talk with strangers and heads straight for work. John quickly bicycles to his workplace, and meets with Officer Tom along the way, but John avoids to have a chat with him about the train incident, and rushes to the bank. Even there, he is the center of attention, as Mr. French inquires about the lady at his house. Mayor Krill also drops by, and asks him to take a leave, but John, who is desperate to avoid people, insists on completing his work. Upon returning home, he finds some kids playing in the backyard wreckage, and this enrages him. But when he opens the door, he finds the officer waiting for him. Tom once again indulges him in conversation and asks about the woman at his house. John doesn't respond as usual, so Tom speculates that they recently got married. Tom then changes the topic and talks about John's mother, who passed away a year back. Even now, Tom suggests that John take action against the train company. This is a glorious opportunity for our hero to make a lot of cash, but all he cares about is getting the carriage off of his backyard. He calls the train company and politely asks them to speed up the process, but the person on the other end informs him that it won't be possible. It would take at least a week or so to get the job done. The next morning, as Emma is busy preparing breakfast, she finds two people in front of the door. They come in without permission, and the woman introduces herself as Fanny Krill, the mayor's wife, while the man reveals that he's the senator's political advisor, Connor. They are here to meet John, but Emma anxiously says that he's not home. The two actually want to use the crashed train as a backdrop to support the senator's political campaign. Connor says that the entire town of Peacock will be here, including marching bands, food, and other notable personalities. Fanny then reveals that the bank John works for is owned by her husband, Mayor Krill. She goes on to say that she runs the county shelter for women, where she aims to empower and educate them. In this rally, she actually plans to raise money for her shelter, so that more and more displaced women can benefit from it. Unfortunately, Emma finds the idea overwhelming, and she abruptly goes upstairs. She later peeks out of her curtains and sees a happy family, and she dreams of having one. At this point, the clock is already 8:15, but she decides to wait for a bit longer. Emma greets her guests with some cookies and drinks, and tries to interact with them. Here she learns that the shelter not only helps displaced women, but also with the adoption of children. Fanny then requests that she talk to her husband John, and convince him to let this rally take place, because this is the only opportunity to gather funds for the shelter. After the guests leave, Emma receives a call from Mr. French, and informs him that her husband will be a bit late for work. In the next scene, John hurries to his office, only to find the mayor's wife, and the advisor there. The mayor shows him a news headline of how his wife narrowly avoided tragedy, and also a picture of her. John is also shocked when Fanny reveals that she met Emma earlier and had a wonderful conversation about the rally. Here the advisor reveals to him that they are going to have a rally in his backyard, and that hundreds of people will be in attendance. Hearing that Emma loves the idea, John loses it, and he shouts that Emma is not his boss. He is in charge of the house and all the decisions go through him. He vehemently refuses the idea of the rally, and says that the train is going to be taken off his backyard soon. Seeing his outburst, the mayor says he really needs this rally to boost up his political career, and urges him to think about it. When he returns home that night, he is approached by a young mother named Maggie. John is not pleased to see her, revealing that they have a past. Maggie then asks for some money, as she wants to leave town. She claims that she stopped receiving checks a year ago, and now she is seriously short on cash. John doesn't understand what she's talking about, so Maggie reveals that his mom used to send her checks as long as she stayed away. The money was for her son, Jake's well-being. John was completely unaware of this, and upon seeing the young boy's face, he heads upstairs to take his money. Not long after, Emma shows up with no recollection of John's memories. She asks Maggie who she is, and why she has come here. The latter lies that she is John's friend, and that she came here to check on him. She then prepares to leave with her son, but Emma offers to give her a ride. The mysterious woman reveals that John is sleeping, goes to her garage, and brings her vintage car out. After a while, they arrive at their destination, a shabby-looking trailer. Maggie invites Emma inside for a drink, and begins opening up about her past. She reveals that a few years ago, she met John's mother in a bar. The mother asked her to see her son, offering a good amount of money for it. But when Maggie arrived at the house, she was taken aback by what was happening. She mentions that John's mother looked exactly like how Emma is now, with the same getup. She tormented the boy and made him do horrible things. Here, it is revealed that John was the subject of intense abuse, and this is why he developed dissociative personality disorder. After his mother died, he created his Emma personality, and now she has similar traits like his mom. Maggie also drops another bombshell. Jake's dad is none other than John Skelpa. This is why his mother was sending her the checks. The information leaves Emma shocked, but she also develops a sense of affection towards the child John. She contacts a man, asking about the process to adopt a child. She actually wants to adopt Jake, as he is technically her child, but she learns that both she and John will have to be present at the same time and sign papers. Not willing to give up, she then comes up with another plan. Emma knows that Fanny can help with the adoption process, so she decides to befriend her first. She meets her at the women's shelter, and gives her approval for the rally. Emma also lies that she has convinced her husband for the same. After this, the two women head to Connor's house, and Emma tells him about the news as well. While she is returning, Officer Tom catches up to her, saying she and John will have to sign the incident reports together, but she doesn't even entertain him and walks away. Later, Emma goes to visit Maggie at her trailer. The young woman appears to be living with an aggressive man, who is not particularly kind to Jake. Emma fears for Jake's safety, but she also doesn't want the boy to leave town, so she tries to persuade Maggie to join Fanny's shelter. Maggie reasons that the place is for unambitious women, and that she wants to do something with her head held high. However, when Emma says that the shelter can provide good jobs, she agrees to give it a try. The next morning, as Emma is in her backyard, she stumbles across John's secret box. On opening it, she finds the key and the bank passbook, which mentions John's savings. As night falls, there's a sudden knock on the door, and John comes to open it. He finds Fanny on the other side with a gift for him. She wants to talk to Emma, but John as usual acts weird. After Fanny leaves, John goes into a fit of rage. He refuses to have dinner, and smashes the plates in the kitchen. In the morning, John wakes up in a much better mood, as Emma has taken care of everything. He checks the breakfast and finds it really well cooked, but he is distracted by some noise coming from outside. Here he is taken aback to see preparations going on for the upcoming rally. This sends him into a fit of rage, and he shouts at everyone to leave his property. Officer Tom asks him to calm down, and all the workers decide to stop the work for now. John then takes this opportunity to fix the fence that was destroyed in the accident. After this, he heads to a private worker, and asks him to remove the train carriage by tomorrow. He offers to pay a huge amount for it, and the man agrees.
800. Cash. I start tomorrow.
When he gets to work, Mr. French scolds him for being absent the other day. John obviously has no recollection of it, and this implies that this other personality, Emma, has started to take control of his body. Just then, he receives a call from Maggie, who says that she is at the women's shelter. She discloses that Emma brought her there, which shocks John, as Emma continues to talk to more people, so he decides to skip work and meet Maggie. He then goes to the women's shelter, pretending to make a donation. As soon as he meets Maggie, he urges her to stay away from Emma and leave town with Jake, saying it's not safe for him here. Fearing that his secret might be exposed, he even offers to give her money so that she can relocate and start a new life. John then drives the Motherson duo back to their trailer, and says that he can't go back to his home. This is because he knows he will change into Emma the moment he steps in that house. When Maggie discloses that she has relatives in a nearby city, he offers to drive her there. Afterwards, John goes to the bank to spend the night, but finds the place locked. Left with no options, he spends the night at the same spot by the lake where he usually hangs out, and Officer Tom finds him there in a miserable state. He inquires if he's alright, but John only pleads that he doesn't want to go home. In a state of utter despair, he reveals how his mother used to hold his head underwater. Tom understands his situation, but says that he needs to go home. John doesn't want to comply, but the officer eventually convinces him to. However, as soon as the officer departs, John packs his belongings, and heads to a nearby hotel to spend the night. Later, when he opens the suitcase, we see Emma's wig and other belongings inside. This means that his other personality is forcing him to become Emma.
No, you can't do this to me, Emma. You can't do this to me.
The scene then cuts to the morning, and we see that Emma has taken over his body. She is back at home and having breakfast. The clock has already passed 8:15, but John still hasn't appeared, revealing that she is slowly consuming his personality. Just then, the private worker, which John had hired earlier, arrives, and he wants the payment first so that he can start working on the train, but Emma, who wants the rally to take place, sends him away. The mayor's wife Fanny also arrives, and reveals that John took Maggie and Jake out of the shelter the other night, and they haven't shown up since. Emma was unaware about this, but she promises to reach out to Maggie and talk to her. Later on, she approaches the young mother and asks what's going on. Maggie honestly discloses that John has offered her money so that she can leave town with her son. Emma tries to dissuade her from taking such a drastic step, as Fanny is ready to get her a job at the bank, but Maggie has already made up her mind. This enrages the strange woman, so she decides to take matters into her own hands. For the first step, she heads home and calls Maggie, pretending to be John. She asks Maggie to come to a certain motel at 11 p.m., where Maggie will receive the money, and Emma specifies the room number. After this, Emma, dressed as John, heads to the bank to retrieve the money. She talks with everyone in a cheerful mood, surprising them. Once she gets all John's money from the locker, she puts it in a paper bag, and proceeds with the next stage of her plan. That night, she shaves off her eyebrows to alter her appearance slightly. She then heads to a bar, where she dances with a man and seduces him. She brings him to the same motel, pretending to have Ketis. But when the man is distracted, Emma strikes him in the head and kills him. What she does next is utterly shocking. She dresses the man in John's clothes, and sets the place on fire. It is 11 p.m., and Maggie arrives at the same time. But she is shocked to find the room covered in flames. She peeks through the window, and sees a body burning, which makes her realize that John is no more. The next morning, Tom, Connor and Fanny visit Emma to inform her about her husband's death. The officer speculates that the fire was caused by John smoking in bed. Emma pretends to be shocked by the news, and she leaves the room in disbelief. Following this, we are taken to the day of the rally. Several people have arrived and are having a great time. However, the woman of the hour, Emma, is nowhere to be seen. Inside the house, she is with Jake, spending time with him. She gives him one of John's childhood toys, and takes a picture of him. But when Emma observes the picture, she is reminded of her own childhood, which was full of torment and abuse. This is when the John inside her awakens, and he realizes that the boy is not safe here. Hence, he immediately summons Maggie, and asks her to get away from this town. He wants to prevent the abuse that he herself had endured. The young lady is confused, but when she is handed a large sum of money, she happily leaves with Jake. Meanwhile, everyone at the rally starts growing anxious as Emma has still not appeared. Fanny decides to look for her, but all the doors and windows of the house are closed. She calls for her, but gets no response. The movie ends as we see Emma sitting on a chair quietly. Perhaps both the personalities are battling it out to gain control over the body.